Hopefully this is my last attempt at doing this. This is such an emotional uh, issue. There's a lot going on, a lot of collateral damage. Employees and former employees are being brought into the mix. Some of them are trying to see themselves out of it. Other ones are just doubling down. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been sitting here for over an hour. I recorded this over and over and over again, and there's always times where things are derailed, and that has to do with one of the major points that happened since my last video. So for those of you that watched my previous video, thank you so much. I really appreciate you all, and for those who subscribe, I appreciate you even more. And for those that liked my video and even commented on it, I really appreciate you. That helps with the algorithm. But that's I wasn't chiming in on it because it's like, oh, there's a good chance to get clicks. Like, no, I actually am personally invested in this. I'm sure some of you are too. It's Daily Wire subscriber, as a Mug Club member, and whatever that means now, because the time at the Blaze is over. But it's not so much that. It's like, well, these are supposed to be our champions of the conservative movement, and they're at odds with one another. They're infighting. Two tweets summarize this, but I'm going to read one tweet and the other one is a Gab post. So giving even time to two. One's from Ben Shapiro. This is the reaction to Steven's reaction or response to the video that Daily Wire put out. So Ben Shapiro put, Steven Crowder's latest video tragically proves that he knows nothing about three things: business, contract negotiation, friendship, and decency. When I saw Steven's video, the first thing I thought was like one of those action heroes that was looking so tough walking away from an exploding building. Like, you burned the bridges, man. You burned the bridges. And for those that believe that Steven is behaving erratic, that this isn't who he is or whatever, he's wrong. He's calculated. He's thorough. He crosses T's, dots his I's. Okay, he doesn't do something like this without having planned ahead. And apparently that whole Stop Big Con website, the domain was registered sometime mid-December, on the same time he was ending his time over at the Blaze. So what does that tell you? That he was already planning this. So that's why I say, see, it's a grift. He wants attention for a new platform, and the one that's trying, it's being so vocal right now. There's other hosts that have gotten involved in the Daily Wire. That's why to them it's all personal now, with the exception of a few or a couple. And I respect Michael Knowles in the way he's been a class act in handling himself. But if someone has a really, really double, triple, maybe quadruple down, that would be Candace Owens. She's been out there with the flamethrower, torching everything in her path. And this is where I get sidetracked in my conversations, because she shouldn't be the one to talk. So for those of you that are in one camp or another, or somewhere in between, I'm not trying to persuade you one way or another, but I do want to at least present to you things that are probably transpiring. There's so many things happening that maybe you don't even know about, because how can you keep up with all the stuff that's going on? But if you follow such an amount of right-wing influencers or whatever, some of this might either sound repetitive, or you just see a lot of infighting among the same groups. But I said I was going to read a Gap post. This is the one that kind of summarizes the rest of it, because Ben's perspective summarizes the sentiment for those of the Daily Wire, obviously. And Matt Walsh is out there just posting, and retweeting stuff from other people that are posting. But Candace Owens is the one on her podcast and on Twitter, and ultimately on Timcast IRL. DeLauren Chen summed it up after spending time on some of those threads. Like, okay, so this is how she says it. I'm going to spell this out. This is her Gap post. I'm going to spell this out because no one else seems to get it. Crowder felt personally hurt and betrayed by the fact that the Daily Wire would not only try to tie his income to what big tech deem acceptable speech, but also do so while taking millions from the Mug Club base he'd bring in. Yes, it's just business, and clearly Daily Wire are very shrewd businessmen. I'm not justifying Crowder's response, but on an emotional level, obviously there's a difference between a faceless company giving you a bad deal versus people you've known for 10 years. Like I said, the bridges are burned. Like, since my last video, I was hoping this would end peacefully, amicably, that they'll make peace over this, and it didn't happen. Some people are going to blame Steven. I don't blame Steven. This was a problem before even he made a video. Some people said that Steven, and still maintain Steven, is part of Con Inc., that he's a gatekeeper for all this stuff. If you go to Gab, people are just piling on Steven. Like, stop trying to be a hero, you're just grifting. Meanwhile, the Daily Wire is saying, stop, you're just grifting because you're launching your own platform. You couldn't get the deal that you wanted. We offered you 50 million. Daily Wire made it about the money. You wanted 50 million. We offered you 50 million. You wanted 120 million. You didn't want it, so now you want to do your own platform and make yourself the victim and all this. You know, it's like, no, you're just being unreasonable. You're not a team player. You don't know how to do business. I already established and credentialed myself in the previous video. So if you see my previous video, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I already spoken those points over there. So I do recommend you check that out. I'm sorry if it's lengthy. I wasn't intending to make it that long. And I'm hoping that this one's considerably shorter because I've already recorded this over and over and over again. And it just keeps getting derailed. Because, again, it's such an emotional issue. So, no, Steven didn't mention any names in his first video. He didn't bring up money whatsoever. He talked about the penalties. But from his perspective, as the Lauren Chen pointed out, this is what he's been battling against. And those that have supposedly been his allies for years have essentially been in league with big tech. That's why there's a lot that's been spoken of about Conservative Inc. Some would say CPAC, TPUSA are among those, or even Fox News. But at Fox News, they abandoned conservatism for quite a while, despite the fact that there's a Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity is a shell of what he used to be. I don't recognize the guy. I haven't heard him in years. And when I do tune in, it's like, oh my goodness, I can't stand you. I'm a Tucker guy. Tucker Carlson is someone that I follow since his MSNBC days. I believe the show was called Crossfire. Anyway, not to get sidetracked again. The point is that there's people slinging mud at both sides for all sorts of reason, and that was collateral damage. But here's the thing: Jeremy from the Contrarian, who covers news and pop culture, he made a strong point because he was the one that was outing that this was a Daily Wire contract when Steven posted it, and that was evidenced by Jordan Peterson tweeting in support of Steven Crowder exposing Big Con, and then someone must have told him he's talking about us and had to delete that tweet. So that was the validation to the point that this was a Daily Wire contract. And Daily Wire outed themselves. And they kept mentioning the money. And for someone like me, like, why are you constantly hitting on the point that Steven never brought up? Because they're going to make this conversation about the money. And sure enough, the downloaded, what feels like talking points. I'm not trying to persuade you one way or another if you're on any other camps, okay? But you have to see it this way too. The conversation has only been about the money. You might also agree with that. Only about the money. As I said in my previous video, Steven is not a fit for the Daily Wire. Daily Wire reached out to him. Steven entertained the offer. And they say that Steven wasn't reasonable with a counter offer. That's what they say. They went their own ways, and that was it. Mid-December, as Steven is leaving the Blaze, he reserves the domain StopBigCon. So it was around that time, allegedly, that he makes the call to Jeremy Boring, and as Matt Walsh has accused, puts on a performance to basically catch Jeremy saying what he's going to say because he was being recorded without the knowledge of Jeremy Boring. And that's the card that Steven plays to prepare the video. So this was all planned and coordinated. That's the accusation. I cannot defend how Steven went about it. Especially if you are a friend of Steven Crowder or work with him directly, how would you feel about that? Is he secretly recording your conversations too? It's a valid point. If I were Dave Landau, I'd be wondering the same thing. And that was the thing. Collateral damage. A lot of the Daily Wire hosts have been really dialing into this. Like I said, Candace Owens, one of them. Or maybe I didn't say it in this video, but I've said it so many times. And this is where things go sideways because I don't want to bring it up. But Candace Owens on her podcast threw out Twitter and then eventually on Timcast IRL. And because this other account called Nuisance Bro brought it up. Before I get to what they brought up, I want to highlight how the behavior on Twitter has been among the right-wing influencers. So this is what I mean is I feel like it was talking points. You have Will Summers that was highlighting that oh, Steven was all about the money, and so unreasonable he walked away from $50 million because he wanted 120 million. Then he called it slave wages. This is the same guy that was mocking Colin Kaepernick because Colin Kaepernick was saying that the NFL was akin to slavery. It's like, oh, how the tables have turned. So people started retweeting him or sharing his talking points. Newsom's probably one. I've never heard of these guys, by the way. Cernovich, I'm familiar with Cernovich. I don't follow. And then what's the other one? Bridget, what's her face? Start with the but whatever. I don't know. I don't care. I don't follow her. But they were all downloading on Steven over the figure, not getting the context of the whole thing that Steven never brought up money. He never even mentioned it was Daily Wire. Daily Wire out of themselves and calculatedly talked about the money, and the conversation has only been about the money, which is why I appreciate the Lauren Chen trying to make sense of this, because she's saying, I'm going to spell this out because no one else seems to get it. It's not about the freaking money, and Steven said as much in his response. No way can I condone the recording of a so-called friend, but I thought this was just business. That's why people were saying, it's like, oh, Steven is butthurt because his friends treated him as in a business deal, as just a business deal. And now the tables have turned. And it's like, hey, how can you do this to a friend? And then the other side's like, well, I thought this was just business. See how this goes. It's ugly. This is politics. It's bad. It's bad for business. It's bad for everybody caught in the middle. If you're a Daily Wire subscriber and or Mug Club member, it's you feel you gotta vote with your dollar. And I hate this. I hate the infighting, the divisions, because this is what the enemy wants. They're laughing their way to this division, and that's what's happened with the GOP as well. But like I said, the collateral damage. You have on one hand the Daily Wire hosts, and then a collection of them. Michael Knowles hasn't gotten involved. I haven't checked Andrew Klavan. Not interested. Jordan Peterson was at first on Steven's side, and I don't know if he said anything ever since because I haven't looked at it. Unless you watch Tyler Fisher's impression of Jordan Peterson, then yes, Jordan Peterson weighed in on it. Really good stuff. Check it out. But the collateral damage. Quarter Black Garrett. Hey, man. Is that why you left Lotto with Crowder? Quarter Black Garrett left because he went to go work with Nerdrotic to grow his channel. Nerdrotic, who's Gary Beekler from Nerdrotic, he lived in San Francisco, couldn't take it anymore because it's Nancy Pelosi's district, and his wife's hair salon had to be shut down. But there was Nancy Pelosi getting a blowout, and his wife's business had to be shuttered the whole time. This was a guy who was left-leaning in his politics and came considerably more to the center and calls out bull for what it is. If anything, he's the most independent as it gets, kind of the quartering. And then he ends up moving to San Diego. San Diego was freer for him, but he eventually made the move to Texas. I made a video reacting to his video of him leaving for Texas. But we lost another good one, another good voter, if anything. He ended up going to Texas. And when he was leaving, presumably the conversations were that Quarter Black was going to be working with Nerdrotic, because Quarter Black got introduced to Nerdrotic through Geeks and Gamers, Jeremy over there at Geeks and Gamers. They all got connected in this network thing. They do Friday Night Tights every Friday. Check it out on YouTube. So that's where he is. And Quarter Black Garrett has still been involved with Lotto Crowder. He's still involved with the sketches. He at times sits on third chair. He's there. He's present. He's active. Okay? Because he was a big part of it, but someone else is filling in now. But Candace Owens repeated something that this nuisance bro brought up regarding Jared Monroe. Jared Monroe. Who's Jared Monroe? He's better known as Not Gay Jared. Okay? And apparently he has an NDA and he can't talk about his time at Lotto Crowder. And I started watching Lotto Crowder, tuning into him towards the end of Not Gay Jared's tenure. Some people said that after Not Gay Jared left, that the show went downhill from there. And if you go to if you go to Jared Monroe's Twitter, there's some things that are suspicious there. You say, oh, he can air out so much dirt on Steven, but he has an NDA. So watch this play out, because there's going to be a lot. Jared doesn't follow Steven, but he follows other members of Lotto Crowder. Jared has been liking posts more favorable to the Daily Wire side of the argument to all this, and this is a very serious thing, because a lot of people that are seasoned members of Lotto Crowder appear to be bigger fans of Not Gay Jared than they are of Steven. So, does he have dirty laundry? Probably, I'm sure. But these were the two that infiltrated Antifa during a time that Ben Shapiro was giving a speech in Utah. I think it was Salt Lake City. So they infiltrated Antifa, and this is how they ended up on the Joe Rogan podcast. That's how I got exposed to them and started tuning in. Okay. They defended their friend, Ben Shapiro, who was quite literally being targeted by Antifa with intent to harm. So that's why how we got here is like, I thought you guys knew each other better than this. We should never have gotten here. But here we are. Here we are at last, and people have already taken their sides. I don't like any of this at all. You know, to a body there are many parts, and each part has its function. And in the conservative space, the Daily Wire and what you're doing with pop culture, I applaud that. I champion that. That's great. I love what they're doing. They have a plan. It's been hammered out for so long. It's taken them so long to get to where they are, and they have ambitious goals to meet, and they're in debt to a lot of the business plan. They got to see that play out, and they have a vested interest to make sure it plays out. So for Steven to come along as a counterpoint to basically make them change their entire plan, because Steven's coming from the perspective of a movement, not a business, that is wrong. They approached you. You don't go back and tell them, yeah, I will, but you got to change your entire business plan, the entire business model. You cannot change that machine. So no, it that reflects poorly on Steven, and he to some extent even acknowledges that. But Steven, that is so unreasonable. Okay, that's just a fact. It's an unreasonable ask of a business because you believe in a movement, and it's just bad optics that you recorded the conversation for insurance. If you look at Dave Landau's Twitter, even he doesn't know what the hell's going on. Quarterback's trying to stay out of this fight as much as he can. It's like, I plead the fifth. And it's just, he posted another meme in 24 hours, he posted one more tweet, and that was a meme of two girls duking it out and him just in the background. Michael Knowles, like I said, is a class act. He responded to the video by not responding to the video. He just put up, not interested in this high school fight over contracts and media personalities and companies, okay? But he did vouch for the person that is his friend, Jeremy Boring, and his boss, obviously. So at least he took the high road on that, and I respect that. That's why he's become, to this point, probably my favorite host, supplanting Matt Walsh, who is, well, Matt Walsh is Matt Walsh, I guess. But it's awful, it's ugly, and our enemies are laughing. But it's also important to note that Steven isn't wrong in what he's talking about. That is the big deal. That is why a lot of conservatives feel disenfranchised by PragerU, by the Daily Wire, Turning Point USA, CPAC. Where were they when conservatives were being deplatformed everywhere? I mean, even to some extent, even Trump. Trump had a Republican Congress and did nothing about Section 230 with respects to how these big tech platforms operated. He did nothing whatsoever. And then the Senate's just, all they do was hold hearings and talk and talk and talk. But one of the most infamous incidents was when Laura Loomer went to go confront Jack Dorsey at one of these tech hearings. And I talk about this in my interview with her. If you haven't checked it out, it's my previous interview that I've done. And I was reminiscing on that because she was booted out by Republicans. And to her, she expresses in her book that was the moment she realized that she's all alone. She's been deplatformed. She was taken out by the leftist enemies of hers, presumably, only to find out that also the right made sure that she was eliminated as well. Unsavory character. No conservative or Republican came out to her defense, which is disappointing. And to see the likes of Jack Posobiec, Cernovich, the Daily Wire hosts, those that have chimed in on this. I don't know who the hell Will Summers is and Bridget What's-Her-Face, but these are supposed to be conservative influencers as well. That they're all harping on the nuisance bro. I don't even know who the heck this guy is, but they're all downloading on Steven it's like they'll cast you out. It's like they need you right now, but when they don't, they'll cast you out. Name that movie reference. And that's what it's starting to look like. And I think Steven was realizing that the fight is bigger than what he suspected, that you can't really trust anybody. So we'll see how everything plays out, but it's worth to note that the ones that have come to Steven's defense are considered centrist independents or even left-leaning Democrats. Tim Pool is considered conservative. He's not a conservative. Jeremy from the Quartering, like, oh, you're conservative because you're defending Steven Crowder. He's far from it, man. Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers he chimed in initially early on saying millionaires fighting over millions. Yeah, well, I guess that's all I wanted to say about that now, because I've recorded this over and over and over again. I'm really tired of saying the same thing. But I think I got it all towards you. But I guess it's to end with this, and I'm hoping, I pray to God this is my last video, because there's no turning back after this. There just isn't. Those friendships are burned. The bridges are gone. That's the tragedy of all this. I do have skin in the game. And that's because I'm a content creator, but I don't do this for a living. I do this for a hobby. I have a day job because I own and operate business. Manage properties. I'm a property owner myself. So I have things to tend to. On top of that, I also have a family to tend to. So when I do these things, it's information, hobby, tech stuff. I like doing tech reviews, but also call out stuff that's happening in the tech space that affects you, just like I do in real estate, to try to encourage you whenever you're prepared to buying or selling a home, whether you're a tenant graduating to become a property owner and things like that, but also calling out what Sacramento is doing to take away your property rights, because that's what they're doing. Full-blown communism here in California. But all that, it's really to say that a house divided unto itself cannot stand. And that's what saddens me about all this. Absolutely. And that's why I feel I had to chime in. So, crap, this video is almost as long as the previous one. I'm telling you, this is such an emotional issue. But as I shop around where I do want to platform my show, not because so now you're gonna be signing contract deals because you wanna get in on the grift. That's why I haven't. Because I hate it. I call it out when I see it. And Steven didn't want to do it. Chicken or the egg? You guys can take your pick. As for me, I am standing more with Steven. Tim Pool put out a poll. Who's more right in this issue? I don't know if he did it before, during, or after his interview with Candace Owens, but the poll results were showing that the majority were on Steven's side. D. Lauren Chen did her own response to a poll, and her poll was showing that Daily Wire was right in this, not over Steven Crowder. So I'm telling you, everything is mixed. Chicken or the egg. I'm just glad Steven finally called it out at something. Is it fair to characterize Daily Wire? I think I said enough for you to know how I stand on that. So I'll leave it there. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate you. And I hope I don't have to do this again on this topic. I got to move on. But for those of you that do pray, I pray for everyone involved and those that are being dragged into this mess. Because we all need each other. We really, really do. We all need each other. I mean, I spent time over on Gab defending basically both sides. Everyone's like, they're all the same thing. They're all Big Con. Okay, Daily Wire's Big Con and Steven Crowder's Con Inc. And we're supposed to believe he's a gatekeeper. I mean, that he's not a gatekeeper. So then I chimed in. It's like, so if he comes here, does that change your mind? They're like, wait, wish him luck. So, okay, so there you go. It's like, with nothing, maybe nothing will ever be enough for some people, because you got to say what I want you to say. Like, then you do your own show. You take the financial risk. If someone loses their revenue stream, are you going to go pay for it? That you did what I wanted you to do. Here's a pat on the back. I don't know. Anyway, that's where I'll leave it. The main show continues on Mondays. I have a clip I think I'm putting out this Monday, but a new episode of Local Broker Reacts is due up for the end of the month, I believe, or the first Monday of February. That's where I'll leave it. Thank you so much for watching. Keep them all in prayer for those of you that pray. I know I have been, and I will continue to do so. See you in the next one.